Part 30. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Leng Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 291. Nangongyun's raised his eyebrows when he saw this. Why, Ranner also has ideas about that formation. Of course, if our Ziwei Immortal Palace has such a powerful formation, then it will be just around the corner to dominate the entire Tiankai domain, and maybe even dominate more places. Shen Moran chuckled twice, and a pair of bright eyes flashed with a sparkling brilliance, as if he had seen the arrival of that day. Nangongyun smiled and shook his head. No, the formation in Qin Mu's hands, our Ziwei Immortal Palace must not monopolize it, but share it. Shen Moran was slightly stunned, a little puzzled. Why share it? Nangongyun smiled lightly, his eyes lightly said, Ranner, your vision is still too short-sighted. Shen Moran frowned slightly, unhappily said, what do you mean? Why is her vision short-sighted? Ziwei Star Palace dominates the entire Tiankai domain. This is something that no previous palace master has done. If she accomplishes it, it would be such a great merit. It is a great honor to leave a strong mark on the sex ceremony. Ranner, although you are ambitious, you are not smart enough. Nangongyun sighed and said. Humph, what's wrong with my ambition? Don't you want it? Shen Moran snorted coldly. Ranner, you are ambitious, but unfortunately you don't know how to choose. Have you ever thought about one thing? If our Ziwei Immortal Palace obtains the formation in Qin Mu's hands, I am afraid that before we can study it clearly, we will become the target of public criticism, isolated by other forces, or even besieged. By then, Ziwei Immortal Palace will not dominate the Tiankai domain, but will face a catastrophe. Nangongyun said leisurely, with wisdom and strategy in his deep eyes. Shen Moyan's face darkened slightly, and he said unwillingly, you mean, we can't take away Qin Mu's things? Then we give up cultivation, come out of seclusion and enter the world, but in the end we get nothing. And Qin Mu killed so many saints in my Ziwei Fairy Palace, can this loss just be ignored? Shen Moyan's eyes flashed with a trace of coldness, and he said angrily that saints are extremely precious at any time, and even the loss of one is a serious injury. This is true even for a holy place like Ziwei Fairy Palace. If these losses cannot be made up in this battle against Dakin, Ziwei Fairy Palace may be unable to recover for a long time, and the top combat power will be broken. Ranner, don't be excited, listen to me. Nangongyun's reached out and held Shen Moyan's slender arm, comforting him. Listen to me first. Okay. Shen Moyan took a deep breath and tried to calm his emotions. Nangongyun's continued, now our lifespans are almost coming to an end, and even if we live another 10,000 years, it will still be useless. Only by breaking through the realm of the Emperor, or even completing the ascension, can we achieve true immortality. At that time, you and I will be truly eternal. And Qin Mu can set up such a strong formation, there must be an unknown secret behind it, and according to my guess, the formation in Qin Mu's hand should be just the most ordinary trump card, and he should have a more powerful trump card in his hand. Maybe there is even a chance to become an immortal. If you and I can get it, maybe we still have a chance to glimpse that higher realm. And our goal is this. Nangongyun's eyes flashed with greed, and then turned into viciousness. Therefore, we must throw out that formation to attract the attention of those forces, and then we can occupy the real opportunity in Qin Mu's hand. Nangongyun sneered, and his dark pupils were full of cold light. Shen Moran's eyes brightened when she heard this, and she said, I understand. But then she pursed her lips again, her beautiful eyes drooped slightly, and said hesitantly, but all this is just your guess. What if Qin Mu doesn't have any other more important opportunities? It can't be wrong. Nangongyun's narrowed his eyes, if he refuses to hand it over, then we will arrest him, torture him severely, and force him to tell us the secrets on his body. We will definitely get something. Xuanhuan nodded lightly, with a thoughtful look on his face. She believes in the judgment and intuition of her husband Nangongyuan's. Over the years, Nangongyuan's has obtained countless opportunities and treasures by relying on his intuition and judgment. And as a Taoist partner, she naturally benefited a lot from it, otherwise the two of them would not have the current realm and cultivation. Since Nangongyuan's dared to say this, it means that his guess is almost right. It's just. I don't know why, I always have an uneasy premonition. Xuanhuan murmured. Ran'er, you worry too much. Nangongyuan smiled gently. Xuanhuan shook her head, but she was still uneasy. Nangongyuan patted her shoulder and said, don't worry, this time the Apocalypse Alliance has summoned so many sects and holy places. Unless Jinmu becomes an emperor right away, there will be no problem. This time, the entire Apocalypse domain united unprecedentedly, and several super holy places, ancient sects and other forces in Fengling domain came to help, and together they encircled and suppressed Dakin. No matter how powerful Jinmu was, he would definitely not be able to escape. Xuanhuan nodded, her worries slightly reduced. Maybe she really thought too much. By the way, during the day today, your eyes were always fixed on Mu Kingzi, the Holy Lord of Yaoguang Holy Land. Why, are you interested in her? Xuanhuan suddenly remembered something, raised his eyebrows, with a bit of mischief in his tone, and a dangerous light in his eyes. Nangongyuan's eyes wavered slightly when he heard this, then he calmly restrained them, shook his head, and smiled softly. Ran'er, don't talk nonsense. You know I'm not keen on men and women. I've lived my life for the Great Way. The so-called goddesses and fairies are nothing but skeletons in my eyes. After a pause, Nangongyuan stared at Xuanhuan with burning eyes and said with a smile, of course, except for you, Ran'er. Xuanhuan curled his lips and snorted, you'd better be like this. Nangongyuan smiled slightly, of course it's like this. Xuanhuan reluctantly believed his words, okay, that's it, I'm going to practice, call me when we set off. After that, Xuanhuan turned into a stunning figure and rushed away into the distance. Nangongyuan looked at Xuanhuan's disappearing back, and a gloomy light flashed in his eyes. He shook his head again. Mu Kingzi is more attractive. I heard she is still a virgin. She is really coveted. When I step into the realm of the Emperor, I will definitely take you into my pocket. Nangongyuan murmured slowly and in a low voice, with undisguised covetousness and greed in his tone. Boom! Suddenly, a thick thunderbolt suddenly struck down. In an instant, the sky was dark and the violent pressure enveloped the entire sky, as if the power to destroy the world was coming. Nangongyuan suddenly raised his head and looked at the sky. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Leng Mian Bulletin Leng. Chapter 292. In an instant, the originally clear sky suddenly became overcast, and a strong pressure filled the entire sky, making people tremble with fear. This, a calamity cloud, Nangongyuan said in shock. A calamity cloud is only produced when a saint-level cultivator with extremely strong talent and foundation breaks through to a higher realm, and it is impossible for ordinary saint-level cultivators to have such a vast and majestic calamity cloud. There are even some saints with weaker foundations who do not even have a calamity cloud when they break through. But the calamity cloud in front of him is more terrifying than all the calamity clouds he has seen combined. Could it be that a powerful saint-level cultivator is about to break through? Nangongyuan's heartbeat began to beat rapidly. Then he quickly pinched his fingers to deduce. But the more he deduced, the weirder the expression on his face became. It's not a calamity cloud, but just an ordinary heaven and earth phenomenon. Nangongyuan frowned, and then loosened his right hand that was pinching the seal. Strange, this looks like a calamity cloud, but the result of the calculation is an ordinary heaven and earth phenomenon, Nangongyun's muttered in a low voice. At this time, the flashing lightning in the sky has begun to slowly dissipate, the dark clouds have gradually dissipated, and everything has returned to its original appearance. Nangongyun's was relieved. It seems that I really saw it wrong. Then he didn't think about it anymore and turned to leave the room. On the other side, in the inner world of the demon refining pot, Qin Mu sat cross-legged on an extremely huge bed, with jade arms lying around him, and his black hair fluttering, a scene full of spring. And the owner of one of the jade arms was the Yaoguang Saint Lord, Mu Qingzi, who Nangongyun's had been thinking about, and even couldn't help but keep peeking at in front of his Taoist partner. At this time, Mu Qingzi was closing her eyes tightly, her long and curled eyelashes were trembling gently like butterfly wings, her nose was straight, her cherry mouth was shining with a bright luster, and her exquisite facial features were completely presented in Qin Mu's vision. She was wearing a crescent-shaped white dress, half undressed, and her snow-white skin was covered with tiny beads of sweat. Her crystal-clear skin seemed to be fragile, and it looked even more hazy and dreamy under the faint moonlight, like a beautiful crystal with an alluring luster. It seemed as if she would melt into this ethereal fantasy in the next moment. Her hair cascading down like a waterfall was scattered on both sides, floating like seaweed. She slept quietly on the bed, exuding a charming smell, making people want to kiss her and explore her beauty. And between those two slender legs, two white bodies were entangled. One had a hot body and exposed curves. The other was slender and delicate, exquisite and cute. Both of them had beautiful faces, which could be called natural beauties, but they had their own different charms in such beauty. And in such beauty, there were their own unique characteristics. At this time, they hugged each other tightly, inseparable and inseparable. For a moment, the inner world was filled with spring and infinite beauty. The only one who could appreciate this beautiful scenery was Qin Mu at this time. However, Qin Mu's expression was terrifyingly calm at this time, his eyes were tightly closed, and he seemed to be not interested at all. This scene was nothing to a man who had experienced hundreds of battles, even thousands of battles. Qin Mu's ability to withstand pressure had been improved many times. His heart had long been numb. Therefore, this little bit of beauty could not cause any ripples in his heart. This kind of thing is like getting married. When you just get married, you are inseparable and want to stay in it all day long. But later, after a long time and enough experience, you don't feel novel, and even feel a little bored and boring. However, as the Holy Lord of Yaoguang Holy Land, Mu Qingzi's outstanding features are still very eye-catching. Qin Mu is very satisfied with this. At this time, the three women fell into a deep sleep, and a wisp of silver-gray light penetrated into their bodies along their exposed skin, constantly nourishing their bodies. Their cultivation was actually increasing at a rate visible to the naked eye. And this speed did not mean to stop at all, and it was climbing at a very terrifying speed, which completely violated the cognition of the immortal cultivators. They were still like this, and Qin Mu, the leader, was even more terrifying. At this time, Qin Mu was completely immersed in cultivation. With every breath, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth rushed into his body crazily, and gathered with his own power to form a new cycle. 1 circle, 2 circles, 3 circles, 9 circles. After 9981 circles, Qin Mu finally opened his eyes. Unlike before, this time Qin Mu's eyes were no longer sharp, nor did he have the majesty of an emperor, nor did he have any murderous aura. Instead, there was a touch of warmth and peace. It was like a banished immortal who had seen through the endless world and finally returned to his original nature. Every move he made was filled with an indescribable tranquility and wisdom, making people want to follow him forever and worship him. A smile appeared on Qin Mu's lips. He raised his hand, and a lotus condensed on his fingertips. The lotus quickly spun, forming a vortex, and finally turned into a stream of light and disappeared into the air. Then, the arc of Qin Mu's mouth widened. Although the realm has not been broken through, the power of the soul has indeed reached a new level. Not bad, a lot of gains. Qin Mu nodded with satisfaction. Although only the transformation of the soul was completed, it was a real sublimation. So Qin Mu had nothing to regret. It can only be said that he still underestimated the pure yin power of the spiritual power required to break through the realm of the saint. Mu Kingzi, who was in the saint realm, was far from enough. So Qin Mu only completed the transformation of the soul power. And there was a small episode in the middle. Qin Mu did not expect that the sublimation of his soul would actually attract the calamity cloud. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and brought Mu Kingzi and the other 3 women to the inner world of the demon refining pot, otherwise they might have been discovered by someone. Qin Mu raised his eyes slightly and glanced at the 3 women on the bed. The 3 women were still immersed in deep sleep. They still maintained the ambiguous posture just now. Congratulations to the master for breaking through. A charming voice suddenly sounded. Qin Mu smiled and looked at Zhang Luoshan, and ordered, "Go, let Shen Yaoxi come over, I have a surprise for her." Zhang Luoshan heard the words and immediately took the order and left obediently. Not long after, Shen Yaoxi, wearing a red dress, with a slender waist and a curvy figure, came into the room. At this time, her face was full of doubts and uneasiness. She looked at Zhang Luoshan, and then at Qin Mu. Then she knelt on the ground with some trepidation, lowered her head, and whispered, "Nunu pays respect to His Majesty." Qin Mu smiled and said lightly, "Raise your head and look at the person on the bed. Do you know him?" Shen Yaoxi was startled and raised her head quickly. When she saw Mu Kingzi lying on the bed, with a stunning appearance, beautiful and ethereal aura, her pupils suddenly dilated, she was shocked, her pretty face turned pale, and she almost fainted. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Leng Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 293. Master, Master. How could it be? Shen Yaoxi's head buzzed, and it was blank in an instant, leaving only chaos. Her heart was filled with great panic. How could Master be here, and with 2 other women? How could this be possible? Shen Yaoxi couldn't believe her eyes. This couldn't be real, she must be dreaming. It must be. She pinched her smooth and soft thigh hard, and the severe pain spread throughout her limbs, making her completely understand that all this was real. And Master, she really fell into Qin Mu's hands. Shen Yaoxi knelt in a daze, her heart was dark, and she fell into despair. She never dreamed that she would actually meet Master, and what she couldn't imagine was that her respected Master would actually. Shen Yaoxi collapsed. At this time, the impact she felt when she saw her Master was no less than when she was first imprisoned in the Qin Palace and saw the scene of sleeping together. At that time, she only felt that she had fallen into an ice cave and lost hope. But later, it was her Master who gave her a glimmer of hope, because as long as the Master was still there, she would have hope of escaping, and the Master would never give up on her. But now, even this last glimmer of hope was completely broken. Shen Yaoxi's world suddenly became dark. All these days of persistence depended on this glimmer of hope, but when the hope was broken, the whole person's faith was like a surging river tide, and it was gone very quickly. Shen Yaoxi bit her rosy lower lip with her pearly teeth, her eyes were red, and there were faint crystal tears flashing in her eyes. Even the Master was not the opponent of the man in front of him, and he was even killed. Is there really no hope at all? What? Are you surprised? Qin Mu said with a smile. Those extremely evil eyes revealed a few traces of teasing and playfulness. Being stared at by him like this, Shen Yaxi felt cold all over and couldn't help shivering. She shook her head, then nodded, somewhat at a loss. "I allow you to come closer and take a look," Qin Mu said lightly. Shen Yaxi hesitated for a moment, then stood up tremblingly and slowly walked towards the bed. The closer she got to the bed, the slower her steps became, her heartbeat quickened, and her heart pounded, almost jumping out of her chest. When Shen Yaxi walked to the bed, her eyes were completely dull, and her whole body froze in place, unable to move at all, and could only stare blankly at the three people on the bed. She stretched out her trembling hands and stroked the familiar yet unfamiliar figures on the bed. "Master, why have you become like this? Is it destined that our Yaoguang Holy Land will have this disaster?" she murmured to herself, with a hint of bitterness and sadness in her voice. Finally, her legs softened and she completely collapsed on the ground. "Do you like this surprise?" Qin Mu said with a chuckle, staring at her expression with interest. He liked to see this kind of master-disciple friendship the most. As a disciple, in order to prevent his master from getting hurt, he must be more obedient, right? The opposite is true. As a master, in order to prevent his disciple from getting hurt, he must be more cooperative, right? Shen Yaxi pursed her red lips slightly, bit her thin lips with her pearly teeth, tears slowly fell from her eyes, she stared at Qin Mu and trembled, "Let my master go." Qin Mu shook his head and smiled faintly, "You should say this to your master, her madness just now almost took my life." Qin Mu was right in saying this, but all the women who had truly practiced dual cultivation with Qin Mu were crazy about it. The feeling of rapid increase in cultivation is incomparable to anything else. It can completely make a fairy who is pure and unsexy and does not eat worldly fireworks obsessed with it. Shen Yaxi felt a sharp pain in her heart, and tears instantly flowed from her eyes and dripped onto the ground. She shook her head desperately, trying to explain, "No, it's not like that." The master in her memory was so perfect, cold yet gentle, dignified yet playful, and gave her infinite care. He was her guide on the road of cultivation, leading her all the way forward. How could it be what Qin Mu said? This is absolutely impossible. Qin Mu lifted his thin lips slightly, revealing a faint smile. "I really spent a lot of effort to reunite you, master and apprentice." Qin Mu shook his head, his tone was quite emotional, and every word and sentence struck Shen Yaxi's heart, making her tremble all over. Qin Mu stood up and said, with light steps, looking down at Shen Yaxi who was limp on the ground. Shen Yaxi's lips trembled, and she raised her head with difficulty and looked at Qin Mu. Qin Mu raised his lips and said slowly, "But I know you have been away from the Holy Land for a long time, and you must miss your master very much, so I specially summoned you to meet your master. How about it, am I very kind and loving?" Qin Mu said with a smile, his voice was gentle, like the friction of jade. However, it fell into Shen Yaxi's ears, it was as harsh as the devil's sound, making her tremble all over. Kindness and friendship? Listening to these four words, Shen Yaxi just wanted to laugh. You are also qualified to say these four words. Which strokes of these four words have anything to do with you, a tyrant and a tyrant? But even if Shen Yaxi had 100 courages, she would never dare to say these words. Her face was frighteningly pale, and her body couldn't stop shaking, showing her extreme fear. She bit her lip, barely pulled the corners of her stiff mouth, and barely smiled. Your Majesty, you are right. Your Majesty is kind and generous. There is no one in the world who is more kind than your Majesty. Your Majesty is really kind to me. I am grateful. Shen Yaxi tried to control her expression and tried her best to stay calm, but her tone was still shaking uncontrollably, and her whole face was as pale as paper, without any blood. She looked extremely miserable. Qin Mu looked at her like this, his eyes were indifferent and without any ripples, and then he stretched out his right hand and waved towards Shen Yaoxi. In an instant, Shen Yaoxi stood up and came in front of him. Shen Yaoxi was stiff all over and dared not move. "Since you also know that I have been very kind to you, how are you going to thank me?" Qin Mu asked with a smile. Shen Yaoxi was stunned. "I..." She hesitated for a long time before stammering, "I am willing to serve your majesty for all eternity." Now, without any hope, she can only make this choice and answer. Qin Mu raised his eyebrows slightly, and seemed very satisfied with her answer. He slowly raised his hand, and his index finger hooked Shen Yaoxi's snow-white and delicate chin, forcing her to look at him. His eyes flashed with a deep cold light, as if he could see through everything, making people palpitate and unable to help but surrender. Shen Yaoxi's breathing became rapid and messy, her tense nerves were almost about to collapse, fine beads of sweat oozed from her forehead, and her legs could no longer stand. Qin Mu's momentum was too strong, and Shen Yaoxi couldn't breathe. She even felt that if she continued to stay by Qin Mu's side, she might suffocate to death on the spot. However, she didn't even have the courage to move a step. "Forever and ever," Qin Mu's deep voice sounded, "that's a good idea, you can live forever, right? At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid." Author, Leng Mi and Buletin Leng. Chapter 294. Qin Mu's joking tone made Shen Yaoxi's heart beat suddenly when she heard the words. Her whole heart was in her throat, as if a sharp blade was hanging in it, and it would shatter if touched even slightly. "I don't dare, I don't dare." She shook her head in denial, her face turned pale. Although her words were indeed expedient, she had never thought about immortality forever. As long as she could survive, that was her current pursuit. "My things are so easy to get," Qin Mu sneered, then let go of his hand and turned towards the bed. Shen Yaoxi breathed a sigh of relief, collapsed instantly, and fell to the ground. At this moment, Qin Mu suddenly turned around and said with a smile, "Do you know how much benefit your master has just received?" Shen Yaoxi was startled. "Master, has she benefited?" Qin Mu hasn't finished speaking yet. "After practicing just now, your master's cultivation level has improved by at least 1 level. Do you know what this means?" Qin Mu looked back at her and said calmly. Hearing these words, Shen Yaoxi's pupils shrank violently and her eyes widened in horror. Of course she knew what that meant. No one knows Mu King's cultivation better than her, and no one knows better than her how long Mu Kingzi has been trapped in this realm. But, is it so easy to break through to the Saint realm? As a little slave girl who had never enjoyed the benefits of dual cultivation, a trace of doubt flashed in Shen Yaoxi's eyes. Although she has heard some rumors, she will never understand this kind of thing until she has experienced it personally. But the next moment, Shen Yaoxi suddenly felt uneasy in her heart. Would the tyrant in front of him really allow his master to increase his strength so easily? You must know that in the great Qin harem, only a few women can get this favor. And more concubines are just furnace cauldrons at best. Your Majesty, I don't know what it means. I just hope you won't embarrass the master. Shen Yaoxi suppressed the panic in her heart and said calmly. Her voice was trembling, showing her inner nervousness and fear. As expected, Qin Mu said calmly, "These things don't belong to her, so I will abolish her cultivation and make her a useless person. If she still doesn't behave, I don't mind killing her. Abandon your cultivation, turn into trash, kill." Shen Yaoxi swayed and almost fell to the ground, her face turned pale and her head was buzzing. She suppressed the overwhelming anger and sadness in her heart, and said in an almost pleading tone, "Your Majesty, I beg you, you can't kill my master, she is still valuable." "What's the value?" Qin Mu asked nonchalantly. Master, she knows formations, weapon refining and other kinds of magic. You need these, so you can still use her if you keep her." Shen Yaoxi hurriedly explained, fearing that Qin Mu would kill Mu Qingzi on impulse. However, Qin Mu snorted coldly, "She is my enemy. She even dreamed of killing me just now. She is so strong now and has such unstable factors. How can I keep her here?" Shen Yaoxi was speechless. After a moment of hesitation, she slowly said, "Your Majesty should understand that we women are also chips to a certain extent." When Shen Yaoxi said this, her eyes were slightly red. She choked with sobs and looked at Qin Mu with a sad face. "Can you let master go? As long as you don't kill her, I am willing to bear all the blame for master." "You," Qin Mu looked at it and asked seriously, "you are like this yourself, and you still bear the blame for others?" Shen Yaoxi. She opened her mouth and was about to explain, but found that her throat seemed to be strangled by something, and she could not make a sound at all. The sun rises and sets, and time flies. The dark night came again. But this time, the night in Tianlang City was a little different from the previous nights. In the main hall of the tallest building in the city, a saint appeared silently. They stood side by side with solemn expressions, like sculptures standing in the temple. One lamp after another burned silently in front of them, illuminating half of their faces and hiding the other half in darkness. The atmosphere gradually became solemn, and even the noisy evening breeze gradually fell silent, and a heavy feeling of an impending rain spread. P.S. Didn't I say last time that the Dr. Diamond ring, which claims that one ID card can only buy one diamond, was a scam, so I didn't buy it, so now I don't have a diamond ring to use. In the past 2 days, I have almost lost my hair worrying about the betrothal gift. I already have the 66,000 yuan for the engagement, but I still need another 100,000 yuan for the wedding. This 100,000 yuan is not yet available at all. It has really been spent too much. I am so worried that I can't sleep just thinking about this every day. In addition, I have been running around continuously. I haven't eaten for several days and I can't eat at all. But fortunately, I am not in a hurry to get married, and I can still save some money. But I really can't afford a diamond ring. It's too small to look good, and too big to be expensive. There's no compromise. Fortunately, my partner is more family-oriented and cares about money, so I finally decided not to buy a natural diamond, but a cultured diamond. This saves a lot of money. A 0.57 carat artificial cultured diamond plus the ring setting is only more than 3,000 yuan. How should I put it? Although it is also expensive, it is much better than that Dr. Counting the ring, drinks, cigarettes, and food, as well as the scene layout, props, follow-up shooting, rental of costumes, souvenirs, and red envelopes for guests from the woman's side, this engagement banquet will cost at least tens of thousands of yuan. This is just a rough calculation. There are more details, such as the cake, flowers, fruits, snacks, etc. at the engagement banquet. These things are also money. I dare not calculate at all, it's all money. Before, I calculated that it would cost more than 300,000 yuan to get married, but I found that it was not enough. I haven't even got married yet, but I've spent almost 200,000 yuan just for the engagement. I really can't afford it. It's too difficult. On the other hand, the woman doesn't need to spend anything except the dowry. Being a man is too tiring. If possible, I really want to be a woman. But speaking of dowry, I suddenly remembered that when her father talked about dowry, he raised a finger and said that he could at least give this much. What does one finger mean? 10,000? It shouldn't be possible. After all, his father is so arrogant. 10,000 yuan is not funny. 100,000? I don't think it should be either. After all, a person with a year-end bonus of more than 200,000 yuan, how can he take out a mere 100,000 yuan? So, old bitch, Hurry up and give me 1 million gold coins, don't let me look down on you. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Leng Mian Bulletin Leng. Chapter 295. A group of saints stood quietly in the hall, and everyone's expression was extremely solemn. These saints were both male and female, with white hair and old men exuding a decadent atmosphere. There were also old men with white hair and youthful faces, and there were saints with flowing black hair who still looked like young people. Not only that, except for some old women with high status, most of the female saints appeared in their youthful and gorgeous appearance, and their every frown and smile was stunning. There were also some saints who concealed their true appearance and moved mysteriously, or saints with handsome faces but revealed a sinister temperament. These saints were scattered throughout the hall, some of them were sitting cross-legged with their eyes closed, some were standing with their hands behind their backs, some were sitting against pillars, some were facing the door, and some were leaning against the wall. Roughly counting, there were more than 100 saints in the whole hall. This is an unprecedented event in the history of the entire apocalypse domain. After all, a sect that has a saint is already a first-rate sect. Moreover, the saints restrain each other and usually do not gather together easily. Even those top holy places find it difficult to gather these saints together. However, tonight, more than 100 saints gathered here. Their purpose is naturally to attack Dakin. Qin Mu is the first person in 10,000 years to turn so many saints from the holy places into enemies. The last battle in the apocalypse domain that brought together so many saints was the last one. That was the great war between the human race and the demon race tens of thousands of years ago. In that battle, the human race lost countless heroes, and the demon race also paid an extremely painful price. That time, the human race won miserably, and the demon race was defeated, and it has not recovered until today. Now that so much time has passed, the apocalypse domain has finally ushered in the second large-scale saint war. However, this time, not only the saints of Tiankai domain, but also the saints of some forces in Fengling domain gathered. At that time, the saints of Daking dynasty, Xiang Palace, and other forces in Fengling domain also perished in that pit. So after receiving Tiankai Yu's invitation, these forces also sent their forces without hesitation. In any case, they were under the banner of revenge, which could be regarded as a legitimate reason. As for what their purpose was, it was unknown. As time passed, the candles in the hall gradually burned out. The heavy black curtain was like a giant beast, covering half of the sky and blocking the bright moonlight outside, as if it was going to swallow up all the light here. The hall fell into silence. Everyone closed their eyes and rested, with a straight body, extraordinary temperament, and a faint chilling pressure. Tonight, we must take down Dakin. Finally, an old and hoarse voice resounded through the hall. A hunchbacked old man with white hair walked out from a group of saints. He was thin and his legs were trembling, as if they would break if a gust of wind blew. People were worried that he would fall to the ground and die. But even with this sick appearance, none of the saints present dared to look down on him. This old man was the Grand Elder of the Xiang Palace in Fengling domain, Gu Xuanji. As Gu Xuanji spoke, the other saints opened their eyes. In an instant, the light in the hall suddenly became much brighter. Gu Xuanji walked slowly, looking like an immortal. Every move he made was accompanied by an inexplicable rhythm, giving people a feeling of returning to nature. He looked around, his cold eyes full of murderous intent, and his tone was full of hatred. The tyrant Qin Mu of the great Qin dynasty killed my disciple. Today I will kill him with my own hands and avenge my disciple. The master of Xiang Palace who was killed by Qin Mu was his disciple. The Fengling domain is far away from Tianlang city, so they just arrived here and have not expressed their position. Now these words have shown their attitude and position. As soon as Gu Xuanji finished speaking, several other Fengling domain saints also expressed their positions one after another. The Qin dynasty has evil ambitions and wants to invade our two domains. It deserves to be killed. If we allow the Qin dynasty to continue to develop, the consequences will be disastrous. That's right. This time, my Fenling domain will join hands with the Tiankai domain to fight against the Qin dynasty. We must not let the tiger go back to the mountain, otherwise there will be endless troubles. Since you have made a decision, there is no need for us to be polite. We will directly attack the Qin dynasty and destroy it, so as to avoid more troubles. Qin dynasty. Hearing these two words, many saints in the Tiankai domain could not help but clench their fists, grit their teeth, and their faces twisted and ferocious. That's right, Mo Xianchen of Ziwei Fairy Palace followed up and said, the Qin dynasty is currently the common enemy of our two domains. If it is not destroyed, I am afraid that people will be panicked and it will be difficult to be stable. Hearing these words, many saints in the Tiankai domain nodded. They all hope to take this opportunity to destroy the Qin dynasty together and completely exterminate it, and never have troubles again. Since everyone thinks this way, let's discuss the specific matters, such as who will be the vanguard and rush to the front. Nangongyuans, who was dressed in a white robe, sat on the throne in the main seat of the hall and said to the people in the center of the hall. As soon as these words came out, everyone fell into deep thought. After all, everyone knew how dangerous the Qin dynasty was. Qin Mu has a record of killing dozens of saints. Once he ambushed them, they would probably be slaughtered. Although the alliance of various forces is strong now, who is willing to be the vanguard and die? Nangongyun saw this scene, and a trace of sarcasm and disdain appeared at the corner of his mouth. He had known that it would be like this, so he proposed it early. Otherwise, it would be more troublesome to refuse each other at that time. His eyes swept around and finally stopped at the old man with white hair in the center of the hall, who looked like a dying old man. Gu Xuanji, who do you think should rush up first? The hall was silent, and everyone's eyes were all on Gu Xuanji. Ahem, I am old and not suitable to rush to the front line. Let you young people do it. Gu Xuanji stroked his chest with his dry palm, coughed weakly twice, shook his head, and refused. I suggest that the Apocalypse domain take the lead, and the major holy places in the Wind Spirit domain can lend a helping hand later. At this time, a saint in the Wind Spirit domain spoke up. I agree. Another saint in the Wind Spirit domain echoed. However, the saints in the Apocalypse domain disagreed with this plan. Humph, what a joke. Why should we be your pathfinder? That's right. My Apocalypse domain is the main force this time, how can you Fenling domain have a say? I think you Fenling domain are just afraid of being embarrassed, and are deliberately looking for excuses to delay. We in the Apocalypse domain will not fall for this kind of trick. Haha, are you Fenling domain afraid? The saints in the Apocalypse domain sneered, not hiding the contempt and ridicule in their eyes. The saints in the Wind Spirit domain were livid and furious. Nonsense. We have come all the way here and haven't rested for a while. You should be the vanguard. You called us here in the first place. Now you say we are cowardly. The atmosphere in the hall was intense and noisy. Many saints were arguing with each other. No one wanted to be the vanguard because it meant facing the Qin dynasty directly, which was the most dangerous thing. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 296. That's enough, stop arguing, Nangongyuns waved his sleeves. As soon as these words came out, there was a brief silence in the hall. No matter which camp they were on, they were all exchanging glances secretly, understanding each other tacitly. How about we divide into several teams and each lead a group of troops to attack Dakin? This way, we can not only minimize the loss of personnel, but also solve the problem as quickly as possible, killing two birds with one stone. Nangongyun smiled slightly. In this way, even if Qin Mu has a conspiracy, he will not be able to carry it out. What a good idea. I think what Brother Nangong said makes sense. Why don't we just do what Brother Nangong said? A saint from the Apocalypse realm said appreciatively. Well, let's do it according to Brother Nangong's method. Let's divide into several teams and attack in different directions. In this way, the great Qin dynasty will definitely not be able to figure out our intentions, which will lead to chaos in the lineup and no choice of routes. The saints from the wind spirit realm also nodded. This is indeed the best way. Attack in several ways at the same time. There is no main force or vanguard, and there is no priority. Everyone is exposed to the same danger. Whether you can have the last laugh depends on your ability and luck. Since everyone has no objections, I will announce this now. Everyone will be divided into 5 teams, commanded by the 5 most powerful saints, and divided into 5 groups to attack Dakin. Nangongyun's announced loudly. Good. This is a great suggestion, it's exactly what I want. Everyone nodded in agreement. Then, everyone was roughly divided into 5 teams according to their level of cultivation and number. The number of saints in the wind spirit realm is small and can only be divided into 2 teams, while the number of saints in the apocalypse realm is large and they can be divided into 3 teams. After the numbers were divided, the saints began to get entangled again as to who should be the leader of the 5 saints. In my opinion, how about I serve as the leader of the first team? A saint from the apocalypse realm suddenly said, with a bit of arrogance and confidence in his tone, as if he already had a chance to win. Hearing this, the others frowned but did not refute. This saint from the apocalypse realm is named Yang Fei Yang, and he is a peerless evildoer from the apocalypse realm. He reached the saint realm after only practicing for 500 years. However, he stayed at the peak of the 3rd level of the saint realm for a full 3,000 years, and he is still far away from breaking through to the next level. Only half a step away. Although it is only half a step, it is like a natural chasm, which is regrettable. But even so, no one dares to underestimate his power. When Yang Fei Yang saw that no one refuted him, the smile on his face became even more wanton. In this case, I will do my duty. The saints looked at each other and remained silent, seemingly acquiescing. In this way, the leader of the first team was confirmed. In that case, I will serve as the leader of the second team. Gu Xuanji suddenly interrupted. He stood up on crutches, his turbid eyes flashing slightly. Don't worry, I will work with you to win the Qin dynasty in one fell swoop. Haha, Gu Xuanji, you are really refreshing. Yang Fei Yang raised his head and laughed, then his eyes fell on Nangongyun's. Brother Nangong, what do you think? Nangongyun stared at Gu Xuanji with a slightly gloomy look, and said lightly, I have no objection. I will be the leader of the 3rd team. I have no objection. Haha, I have no objection either, a saint from the wind spirit realm said with a smile. In that case, I will be the leader of the 4th team. Do you have any objections? A burly man stood up and said in a rough and heroic voice. Haha, then I will be the leader of the 5th team, another long-bearded man said with a smile while stroking his goatee. In the blink of an eye, the leaders of the 5 teams were selected. Nangongyun nodded and was about to say something when he suddenly realized that something was missing. He frowned slightly and looked around. Huh? Where is Holy Lord Yaoguang? Why don't you see her? Nangongyun asked doubtfully, looking at everyone. Huh? After hearing Nangongyun's words, many saints also showed doubts on their faces, looking left and right, looking for traces of Yaoguang. Holy Lord Mu Kingzi. I haven't seen Holy Lord Yaoguang either. Neither did we. Everyone shook their heads. Everyone had been discussing it for so long just now, but Holy Lord Yaoguang was actually absent. Could it be that Holy Lord Yaoguang left temporarily because of something? Yang Fei Yang squinted his eyes and guessed. Unlikely. Nangongyun shook his head. If something really happened, Holy Lord Yaoguang should have said hello to us long ago. Then what on earth did she do? Yang Fei Yang frowned. Is it because Daqin scared her so much that she didn't dare to show her face? It's impossible. The Yaoguang saint is still being imprisoned by Daqin. As the Yaoguang saint, it's impossible for her not to dare to show her face at this time. All the saints shook their heads, denying Yang Fei Yang's conjecture. At this moment, Nangongyun felt vaguely uneasy in his heart. Could it be that something happened? Shen Moran, who was beside Nangongyun, glanced lightly, with a dangerous light flashing in his eyes. At this time, someone else discovered something was wrong. And the new empress of the Daking dynasty, Li Qingluo, is no longer here. A saint said in surprise. Huh? Nangongyun suddenly came back to his senses, his pupils shrank sharply, and his expression changed drastically. The heads of two forces have disappeared, which is not a good sign. Did something happen? Someone murmured. It's hard to say. I heard that the great Qin Emperor Qin Mu is an extremely lustful person. He likes married women and collects all kinds of fairies. Maybe the Yaoguang saint and the Daking empress have been killed. Someone said solemnly. Don't talk nonsense. We are all here. How dare Qin Mu fall into the trap? But some people also refuted. That's right. The Yaoguang saint and the Daking empress are not ordinary people. If they really have an accident, they will definitely not be silent. Yes. Just when everyone was speculating. I don't care who is the leader, anyway, I just want the head of the great Qin emperor. A clear voice like a silver bell suddenly sounded. Many saints in the hall looked sideways and looked in the direction of the sound. Three beautiful figures appeared at the door of the hall, a woman in white, a girl in purple and a woman in black. The three people were the Yaoguang saint Mu Qingzi, the Daking empress Li Qingluo and Chu Qianyuo. P.S. Oh, I thought too much about 1 million, it's just 100,000. But his father said that if I can go there to buy a house and settle down, he can give me more. I won't go. Although I'm poor, I'm also a man of integrity. It's just tens of thousands of dollars, I don't care. After the engagement is settled, I will think about the plot and try to get it back on track, and portray the characters in depth. There are too many female characters, I can't even figure out how many there are, I have to sort it out and stop adding characters. I know that I wrote a mess during this period, mainly because I really don't have time to think about the plot. I'm busy every day. Today I ran around outside all day, customizing flowers, customizing cakes, and customizing all kinds of messy things. I also bought some balloons, candles, and petals, and I'm going to decorate the room and make a simple proposal. Although we are getting engaged soon and everything is settled, the necessary ceremony is still necessary. My girlfriend doesn't know about this yet, so I'll keep it a secret and give her a surprise on the 15th. Finally, I shamelessly ask for a small gift. My traffic has dropped drastically recently, and my expenses are so high that I can't even afford steamed buns soon. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 297. Li Qingluo wore a purple dress, a golden sword on her waist, and cloud boots, which fully displayed her graceful and exquisite figure. Compared to the past few days, Li Qingluo today is even more stunning and stunning. Especially the purple crown on her head, which sets off her frosty face and gives people a sense of nobility and majesty. On the other side, Mu Qingzi was cold and aloof, with a charming face that was slightly cold, giving the impression that no one should approach her. Her black hair is spread around her waist, her skin is like cream, her legs are slender and straight, her white skirt is flying, and her looming white ankles are exposed in the air, as exquisite as a carefully carved work of art. It's just that there seems to be a little confusion in those eyes from time to time, and the dark eyebrows like distant mountains are also slightly frowned, which makes people feel affectionate. Moreover, her steps were a little weird, not as light as usual, and she seemed to be slightly injured. As for the last woman in a black dress, she is even more eye-catching. She is wearing a black robe, which covers her graceful body and casts a sense of mystery on her delicate and perfect face. Especially her appearance, she is extremely beautiful, even more beautiful than the Holy Lord Yaoguang and the Empress of Daking. She is stunning and breathtaking. This is a pretty face that is stunning, but her face is covered with frost and coldness, giving people a kind of indifference that repels people thousands of miles away. Mu King's character is cold, which is the result of her personality, but the woman in the black dress now is completely different. Her temperament is cold. Like a 1,000-year cold river, it can freeze everything, as if nothing in the world can enter her eyes. At this time, the woman in black skirt was supporting Mu King's. The three women walked slowly from outside the palace to the palace, attracting the attention of everyone present as soon as they appeared. "It's Holy Lord Yaoguang and Empress Daking!" Everyone exclaimed, their eyes fixed on the three people. In an instant, the entire hall was boiling with excitement, and everyone's expressions were full of excitement and excitement. They did not expect that Holy Lord Yaoguang and Empress Daking would actually appear together. "His so beautiful," a saint gasped, looking at Mu Kingzi infatuatedly, with undisguised desire in his eyes. "How can there be such a beautiful woman in this world? I'm afraid the fairies in the sky are just like this," the people next to her agreed. "Holy Lord Yaoguang is really like a fairy from the 9 heavens descending to the mortal world. He truly deserves his reputation. Yes, she is so beautiful. I can guarantee that there will be no other woman as beautiful as her in the entire 9 human realms. That girl in purple is the new Empress of Daking, right? Despite her innocent and cute appearance, it is said that her methods are extremely ruthless. The reason why she is in her current position is because she killed all the other brothers and sisters who had inherited the imperial power." "Really? I heard that she did such a cruel thing not long after she became an adult. Who knows, no matter what, she is now a veritable Empress of Daking. Tisk, tisk, she is so powerful. She deserves to be the Empress of Daking. She is really courageous." As the three women walked slowly towards them, there was a burst of discussion around them. Although everyone has never seen the Empress, they are familiar with the rumors about the Empress. After all, her methods are too ruthless, and her courage is not simple. Li Qingluo walked gracefully with lotus steps, a faint smile on her lips, obviously not paying attention to the comments around her. Beside her, the expressions of Mu Kingzi and the woman in black were completely opposite. The woman in the black dress still looked so cold, as if the surrounding environment had nothing to do with her. Along the way, those cold and ruthless eyes scanned the surroundings lightly, making people hold their breath involuntarily. Mu Kingzi pursed her red lips tightly and looked slightly nervous, as if she was afraid of something. Soon, Li Qingluo led the two peerless beauties into the center of the hall, and a strong sense of oppression suddenly hit their faces. The originally noisy scene became silent, and countless pairs of eyes fell on the three people, full of curiosity and inquiry, wanting to see if the legendary Empress was really as terrifying as the rumors. But soon, everyone's eyes were attracted to Chu Qianyu behind Li Qingluo. "Who is this fairy? Why have I never seen it before?" someone asked in confusion. "Yes, I have never seen her before. Could it be that she is also from the Daking dynasty? This fairy is quite beautiful, but I don't know how strong she is. The strength will never be lower than mine, and her temperament is very unique, as if it's like facing the 9 netherworld, it's daunting. Well, it shouldn't be wrong. That's the feeling." This woman must have a big background. The saints from various forces around him were communicating with each other one after another, their eyes fixed on Chu Qianyu, fear and awe shimmering in the depths of their eyes. She shouldn't be from Daking. An old saint nodded affirmatively. He has lived for thousands of years, has rich experience and broad knowledge, and can tell the clues at a glance. The aura on her body is very cold and evil, probably similar to the creatures in the netherworld, but more powerful and terrifying than the creatures there. Another old saint guessed. You mean, this woman practices the way of ghosts? Someone asked. It's possible, the old saint nodded. But this girl is really strong. Even I dare not underestimate her. She must have a strong bloodline power sealed in her body, another old saint said. Not only that, her soul power is also very strong, no less than that of ordinary saints. Is it so scary? In an instant, everyone's eyes on Chu Qianyu changed again. This woman is not a simple character. These saints are indeed the old fossils in the major sections. In just a few minutes, they have figured out 70% of Chu Qianyu's cultivation attributes and strength, and even her bloodline power and soul power. Chu Qianyu listened to the discussion of these people, indifferent on the surface, but secretly awe-inspiring in his heart. These human saints can practice to the current realm. They are indeed not simple existences, and they must not be underestimated. Thinking back to the beginning, it was because she underestimated the means of these humans that she became the guardian beast of the Daking dynasty. But now Chu Qianyu no longer resents the past experience of losing freedom, and even has some gratitude. After all, if she hadn't encountered it before, she might not have met Qin Mu at this time, and she wouldn't be who she is now. When she thought of Qin Mu, Chu Qianyu felt a burning warmth in her heart. But soon, she was a little worried about it. The enemies Qin Mu was about to face were these old monsters in front of him. Could he really do it? Chu Qianyu raised her head, and her cold eyes swept over every face, vaguely worried. At this moment, Gu Xuanji, Nangongyun's and other three saint leaders had already stood aside, staring at the three people with sharp eyes. I wonder where the three fairies went? Why did you arrive so late? Gu Xuanji asked with a smile. As soon as the words fell, everyone quieted down and pricked up their ears to listen carefully. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Leng Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 298. Li Qingluo turned her beautiful eyes and smiled sweetly. It was my first time to come to Tiankai territory, and I was very interested in the humanities and customs here, so Holy Lord Yaoguang took me around for a while and wasted some time. After saying that, Li Qingluo turned to look at Mu Qingzi, smiled brightly, and said in a gentle tone, "That's it, Sister Qingzi." There was a slight ripple in Mu Qingzi's cold eyes, and then she nodded slightly to express her acquiescence. "Ha, that's it. Three fairies, please come in. We are about to set off." Gu Xuanji laughed loudly. "Now you have the ancient Holy Lord Lao," Li Qingluo said politely. "If Emperor Qing is interested in our Tianlang city, then after the battle against De Qin is over, I, the lord of the city, can take the empress for a nice tour." A tall man walked out of the palace and said loudly. This person is the city lord of Tianlang city, named Zhao Wu. He is also a veteran saint and has extremely high prestige in the apocalypse domain. The city lord is welcome. Li Qingluo bowed slightly, then turned around and looked at everyone, her eyes showing just the right amount of hatred, and she said in an indignant tone. "Then Qin Mu killed my father. He committed a heinous crime that cannot be tolerated by heaven. I, the Daking dynasty, will definitely not let him go." As her words fell, a terrifying evil aura suddenly erupted from Chu Qianyu's body, shooting straight into the sky. The entire space froze instantly, and a chill spread. In an instant, everyone's expressions changed drastically, and they felt that the hairs all over their bodies exploded, and a chilling feeling surged throughout their bodies. Those dark and bright beautiful eyes were like sharp swords, piercing the void, exuding the cold smell of death. Everyone's hearts were beating wildly, and they felt as if they were being targeted by a demon king, and their whole bodies were trembling. This murderous intention is so terrifying, as suffocating as an abyss, and completely out of control. This woman has such a terrifying murderous intention. Xuanhuan frowned and couldn't help but tremble, as if he was being targeted by a wild beast. His heart was full of shock and surprise, and his eyes couldn't help but look at Xuanhuan, only to find that Xuanhuan had returned to normal. It seemed that the murderous intention just now did not belong to her. What a terrifying woman! Even a demon cannot achieve this kind of murderous intention so vividly. Nangongyun's expression was also serious. Such a domineering and terrifying murderous intention. Who is she? Zhao Wu, the lord of Tianlang City, said in shock with his eyelids twitching violently. I am the sacred beast of the Daking dynasty, so I will leave the matter of killing Qin Mu to you. Xuanhuan's water chestnut-like lips opened slightly, and his cold voice echoed through the sky, as if coming from Zhuyu, making people shudder. What? The sacred beast of the country? Everyone was stunned, their eyes widened. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone was stunned and looked at Xuanhuan with their mouths open. Daking's national beast is actually a girl. Are you the underworld spirit turtle? Xuanhuan opened his mouth in an O shape and looked at Xuanhuan in disbelief. Although he guessed that Xuanhuan had an extraordinary identity, he did not expect that Xuanhuan would be Daking's national beast. Xuanhuan nodded indifferently, looking in all directions, full of aura. Xuanhuan suddenly felt speechless, and his age advantage disappeared in front of the other party. Okay, without further ado, let's set off, Xuanhuan said indifferently. Hearing this, Nangongyun nodded, then stretched out his hand. Buzz. Suddenly, a huge crystal with a radius of half a foot appeared out of thin air in the center of the hall. The crystal was light blue, with endless lines intertwining and flashing inside it, as if it contained endless mystery. This is the territory map of Great Qin, please read it carefully. After saying that, Nangongyun hooked his finger. Immediately afterwards, the crystal suddenly emitted a dazzling blue light. In just a moment, everyone had the territory map of Great Qin in their minds. Then, without further ado, let's take action immediately, shall we? A powerful saint from the wind spirit realm said. I just need to break into the palace, capture the thief first and capture the king, and everything will be solved. Another young man echoed, with excitement in his voice, as if he was sure of victory. Anyone who stands in the way, shoot to death, someone else shouted in a deep voice. Kill, all the saints in the hall shouted in unison. Everyone, let's go without further ado. I have already ordered my disciples to launch an attack immediately after we enter Qin. Among the saints who had been silent, an old woman said. Go, all the saints shouted in unison again. Then, a line of hundreds of streams of light cut through the dark night sky, divided into 5 columns, and disappeared into the sky. P.S. Today I arranged a proposal scene for a day, and I was originally looking forward to the results tomorrow. As a result, I did something very stupid tonight, which made me collapsed and sad. I sat there crying and couldn't stop crying. It was like the straw that broke the camel's back, and all the defenses collapsed. I'm renting a house outside, and it's almost time to check out, probably less than a week away. As a result, there was a sudden power outage at around 8 o'clock this evening. I thought there was something wrong, maybe a short circuit, maybe a leakage. My first reaction was to call for maintenance. After all, how can I survive without electricity at night? At that time, my mobile phone only had more than 10% of power, and my computer was running low. I still had to write, so I contacted the electrician who came to repair it. When the repairman arrived, it turned out that the circuit breaker was broken. He replaced it with a new one in a few minutes and charged 166 yuan. Me. Isn't it too easy to make money? Although it was very expensive, and the switch was only a dozen yuan, I could only pay 166 yuan. My pocket, which was not rich to begin with, became even worse, especially since I only had a few days before I moved out. It was really unfair to spend this money. So I went to the landlord again and asked her if she could reimburse me. After all, it was for their family, and it was not broken by me. The landlord replied to me quickly, saying that her husband was an electrician. Me. I was silent, and the landlord was silent too. The world is always so dramatic. Of course, her husband is not the electrician just now, but her husband is also an electrician, and they have a lot of those switches that can be replaced. At that moment, my mood was really complicated and hard to describe. The final result was of course that the landlord said that in the future, if this kind of thing happened, just call him directly, don't change it yourself, and he won't reimburse the money. After hanging up the phone with the landlord, the more I thought about it, the more uncomfortable I felt, and the more I wanted to cry. When I thought of the 166 yuan, I felt so heartbroken that I wanted to die. Of course, this matter is not the landlord's fault, but my own. Even if the landlord is not an electrician, at the moment of the power outage, I should have told the landlord as soon as possible instead of contacting the door-to-door repair service. But I really didn't think too much at the time. I just wanted to turn on the electricity quickly. It was also my inexperience that I didn't expect the cost of the door-to-door repair service to be so expensive. Alas, the more I spend money when I have no money, the more I feel sad, especially the dramatic scene that the landlord is an electrician, which makes me collapse. I feel that the whole world is against me. I sat on the balcony in a daze for a long time, feeling distressed and self-blaming, so the string that was tight during this period seemed to finally break, and I couldn't hold back my tears. It hurts so much. My 166. I am such an idiot. Alas, I can only learn from my mistakes. In the future, when I rent a house outside, if any original items in the room are damaged without reason, I must notify the landlord immediately instead of repairing them myself. Remember. It hurts so much. Today I bought 2 bottles of wool yanjai for 2,000 yuan, 2 bottles of red wine for 526 yuan, a diamond ring for 3,200 yuan, and it has not arrived yet. I ordered a bouquet of flowers for 168 yuan, an engagement cake for 260 yuan, and booked 2 hotel rooms for my partner's father for 366 yuan, a dinner for the 15th for 560 yuan, an engagement banquet for the 16th for 1,888 yuan, an engagement banquet set for 750 yuan, a proposal set for 300 yuan, and so on. It's tens of thousands of yuan again. I spend money like water. I paid for most of this money. In order to let me get married, my family's savings were almost emptied. Don't get engaged unless necessary, don't get married. This is a bottomless pit, no amount of money can fill it. Tomorrow I will show you the proposal scene I arranged myself. I feel that if I ask a professional to do this effect, it will cost at least $1,000. Just blowing the balloons makes my cheeks hurt. Go to bed, good night. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Leng Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 299. Chapter 299. A capable and useful saint puppet, produced by the system, must be a fine product. After these teams left, a slender figure slowly emerged from the darkness and looked into the distance. He was dressed in black, with a black jade belt on his waist, a handsome and upright face, black hair falling to his shoulders, a pair of eyes as black as ink, a straight nose, thin lips pursed into a sharp arc, and a knife-like jaw slightly raised. The man had an upright figure, his black hair slightly undulated in the evening breeze, and he exuded an awe-inspiring and inviolable nobleness. He stood quietly at the edge of the sky, motionless like a sculpture, as if blending into the night. "Is it finally starting? Go, go, when you come back, I will definitely give you a big surprise." The corners of his mouth raised a wicked arc, and he murmured, "I promise, you will like it." His words were as ethereal as ghosts, unpredictable and frightening. As soon as he finished speaking, 9 proud figures suddenly appeared behind him. They were 9 stunning women. Each of them was wearing a white veil, covering her delicate body, hazy and graceful. The 9 women raised their delicate hands, lifted the white veil, and revealed their exquisite and beautiful faces. Each of them had a beautiful face, snow white and crystal skin, as if 9 pieces of mutton fat white jade were inlaid in an exquisite vase. They were so beautiful that they didn't look like real people, as if they were fairies walking out of a scroll. As soon as they appeared, the world seemed to be eclipsed, and the sun, moon, and stars seemed dim in front of them. There was a cold color in the pair of autumn water scissors, revealing a strong breath of killing. The most important thing is that each of them exuded a holy breath, and they were 9 saints. Moreover, the aura was even more powerful than that of Gu Xuanji and Nangongyuan's. Obviously, his strength was no less than that of these old saints, and even slightly better. "Greetings, my lord." 9 women in white dresses knelt on the ground, extremely respectful, with clear and pleasant voices, intoxicating. The 9 saints knelt in front of Qin Mu, with respectful expressions, not daring to look up. The respectful attitude was completely unlike what a saint would do, but more like a humble maid, bowing her head and being respectful. If outsiders knew about it, it would surely cause an uproar. Because the pride and arrogance of the saints are unquestionable, they will never kneel down in front of others, and no powerful force is qualified to make the saints surrender. Even the emperor himself could not make some arrogant saints bow their heads, because this is the necessary character and bottom line of a saint. As a saint, he must be a dragon among men, a child of heaven, with pride that ordinary people can't reach. Even if he dies, he will never allow himself to kneel to others. But at this moment, these 9 women are willing to give up the pride of saints, kneel on the ground and call Qin Mu their master. This scene absolutely broke the secular concept and subverted the 3 views of the world. It turns out that saints can really be humble, do not hide their slavery, and are willing to bow their heads. Qin Mu stood there with his hands behind his back, his angular face with a bit of laziness and casualness, and his eyebrows were filled with indifference that looked down on all living beings. "Stand up, don't be so restrained." Qin Mu waved his hand. Hearing this, the 9 female saints stood up, but still stood respectfully on both sides of Qin Mu. Qin Mu looked at the 9 female saints in front of him, and a trace of satisfaction flashed in his eyes. These 9 female saints are the 9 saint puppets rewarded by the system. Each of these 9 saintly puppets specializes in one field, but this is only one of their abilities, not their most powerful. Their more powerful ability is evolution. These are 9 truly spiritual puppets, which can improve their potential through continuous cultivation and training, making them stronger and stronger. They can even evolve into real-life forms with independent consciousness. When the system first gave them away, these 9 saintly puppets were only at the first level of the saintly realm, and they did not have much self-awareness, and only knew to obey Qin Mu's orders instinctively. Now these 9 puppets have been nurtured by Qin Mu for some time, and he has gathered the power of the entire Qin dynasty, using various high-quality rare materials, and even rare fairy-level materials to upgrade and evolve them. Now these 9 saintly puppets have long transformed and have their own unique consciousness. They can be said to be living humans, but their fighting methods may be different from those of ordinary humans. Moreover, their fighting power is extraordinary, and has reached an extremely high level, comparable to the 7th or even 8th level of the saintly realm. Even if saints of the same realm want to defeat them, it is extremely difficult. More importantly, these saint puppets can continue to advance until they reach the peak level of the saint realm, or even the higher emperor realm. This is the horror of these saint puppets. The system's products must be top-notch. Qin Mu glanced at them, with a gratified smile in his eyes, and said, "The next thing depends on you." "I am willing to serve my master," a gentle voice sounded, with an extremely respectful tone, as if listening to the master's teachings. The speaker was a woman in white. Her facial features were exquisite and perfect, her skin was whiter than snow, and her black hair like a waterfall was draped on her back. Every frown and smile showed her peerless elegance. The snow-white robe wrapped her exquisite figure to the fullest, and her chest was bulging and bursting, making people want to explore it. It was Luoxiu, one of the 9 saints, who was good at assassination and helped Qin Mu handle many matters. He was one of the most handy saint puppets used by Qin Mu. "Very good, you did a good job." Qin Mu looked pleased and nodded with satisfaction. He stretched out his fingers and caressed the cheeks of the 9 saints. He felt that their skin was tender and smooth, and his palms felt numb like electric shock. He couldn't help but need them again. "My lord," Luoxiu said coquettishly, a blush instantly appeared on her fair and pretty face, and her shy look was really endearing. The other 8 female saints also lowered their heads shyly, burying their heads in their chests, not daring to raise their heads. Their shy looks were so bright and moving that it made people's blood flow. However, there were also some bold female saints who cast charming and confused looks at Qin Mu. Their eyes were full of spring water, and they seemed to drown Qin Mu. But no matter what the reaction was, they didn't stop it. They were obviously used to it. Qin Mu laughed, and then regained his aura of dominating the world, saying, "Remember, I want that after this battle, there will be only one force and one voice left in the Apocalypse territory and the Tianlan territory, and that is Great Qin." "I will obey my lord's will," Luoxiu said respectfully. The other 8 women also nodded one after another and said in unison, "I will obey my lord's will." The 9 delicate voices gathered together had an inexplicable charm. Qin Mu stopped his playful thoughts and said slowly, "This trip is extremely dangerous. If you are not careful, you will be shattered to pieces. You must remember that no matter what danger you encounter, you must not fight and leave first." "We understand," the 9 people said in unison, a hint of emotion flashed in their eyes. As they were already intelligent, they could naturally clearly distinguish the worry and concern in Qin Mu's tone. Qin Mu's eyes were focused, with a dazzling golden light shining in his eyes, and he said solemnly, "Get ready to take action." "Yes, my lord," the 9 female saints shouted in unison. Then the figures of the 9 women fluttered and quickly flew away into the distance. Qin Mu looked at the place where the saint of the Apocalypse Alliance left, a sharp light flashed in his eyes, and a faint smile twitched at the corner of his mouth. "Since you want to play, then I will play with you and see who laughs last first." After the words fell, Qin Mu's figure suddenly disappeared from the spot, as if he had never appeared before. Tianyang City is one of the must-pass cities on the way from Tiankai region to Tianlan region. It is located at the foot of Tianyang Mountain, occupying the entire Tianyang Mountain, stretching for hundreds of miles, majestic, like a giant dragon lying on the earth. Although it is not as majestic as Tianlang City, it is still extremely prosperous and lively. In Tianyang City, there are all kinds of facilities such as businesses, restaurants, inns, various trading places, elixir pavilions, weapons shops, auction halls, sect residences. Everything is available, and it is prosperous. In addition, there are countless troops stationed and patrolling around the city, and there are even Dao Slayer realm guards standing guard near the city gate. If anyone dares to break in or breaks the law, he will be arrested immediately and severely punished. In addition, there are countless forbidden areas in Tianyang City, which prohibit flying, air control, and destruction. Once discovered, they will be arrested and brought to justice immediately. Moreover, private fights are prohibited in Tianyang City. If you violate the regulations, you will be hunted down by the entire Tianyang City, and you will die. This place was originally the territory of the Kangyu dynasty, but after the Kangyu dynasty became a vassal of the Great Qin, this place also fell under the rule of the Great Qin and became the territory of the Great Qin. In this tense period of time, Tianyang City has already been heavily guarded, with a large number of soldiers guarding the city gates. No one is allowed to enter or leave, and anyone who disobeys the order will be killed without mercy. The walls of Tianyang City are towering and the gates are thick and ancient, revealing the mottled traces of time. Boom! With an earth-shattering bang, the city gate was opened, and a group of tall soldiers wearing armor and carrying swords poured out of the city gate. Their steps were strong and vigorous, and their bodies were filled with strong evil aura. They had all experienced countless life and death battles, and their combat prowess was astonishing, making ordinary monks tremble and fear. At the front of this group of soldiers, there were 4 people standing. Each of them was tall and slender, with sharp eyes. They exuded a powerful aura, giving people a strong sense of oppression. They are the 4 commanders responsible for guarding Tianyang City. One of the men holding a silver gun looked in the direction of Apocalypse territory and said solemnly, "When do you think the army of Apocalypse territory will attack here?" The other 3 commanders looked at each other and pondered for a moment. 2 of them shook their heads at the same time and sighed. "We don't know about this either. We just hope that His Majesty can get here as soon as possible to support us. I always feel that something ominous will happen in the past few days, and the omens of uneasiness are getting stronger and stronger." A look of worry appeared on the eyebrows of the man holding the silver gun. The other 3 commanders were startled when they heard this, and then nodded in agreement. This omen of uneasiness was indeed getting stronger and stronger, making people uneasy. After all, they have been fighting for many years, witnessed countless bloody baptisms, and experienced too many storms, so they have a very keen sense of danger. Especially in this special period, we are even more sensitive. Our Tianyang City, as the border of the Tianlan territory, has the weakest defense. If the Tiankai territory really attacks, the fate of Tianyang City can be imagined. One of the men sighed, with a hint of sadness in his brows. The man holding the silver spear was silent for a moment, then a trace of unwillingness flashed in his eyes, and he said angrily, "Yes, who said it wasn't? Your Majesty has such a powerful formation in his hands. As long as it is arranged here, it can ensure that Tianyang City is safe. But your Majesty has not appeared yet. Has your Majesty abandoned this place and used us as cannon fodder? I think your Majesty is afraid of the Tiankai realm, so he used the formation in Chang'an City. After all, Chang'an City is the most important. What does Tianyang City count for?" Another man sneered, his words full of faint disdain. "That's right, maybe your Majesty has already hidden himself, shrinking in the formation and dare not come out. This tyrant is really afraid of death. If you ask me, let's just surrender to the Tiankai realm." The other 2 also mocked, their words were full of contempt and disdain. They obviously felt sad about the fate they were about to encounter, and were even more dissatisfied with the Majesty who had no news so far. Why are they here to die, while the so-called emperor who is said to be leading the army in person is still nowhere to be seen? Are these loyal ministers and good generals not worthy of respect even in death? Just as these 4 generals were indignant, in the sky above the clouds that they could not see, 100 faint lights flashed by and instantly pierced through the void. No one was alarmed. P.S. I wanted to show you the proposal seen today, but I was so busy that I forgot to take pictures. The whole process was not as romantic as I imagined. Instead, it was awkward, sloppy, and ended in a hurry. Even the lines and proposal BGM I prepared were not played in time. The whole process was very hasty and did not have the effect I wanted. But fortunately, the ending is good. I will be officially engaged tomorrow. I am excited and complicated, and I am a little confused and lost. Of course, there is more joy. After all, it is not easy to get to where we are today. We have been together and separated many times. I remember that we had a serious quarrel once. She was at her house and I was at mine. She blocked all my contact information. I was also very angry at that time. I thought that if she blocked me, she would block me. I would not talk about it. It is not like no one wants me. The next one will be better and the next one will be more obedient. But that night, I tossed and turned, couldn't sleep all night, sat alone on the windowsill and drank. The more I drank, the sadder I felt. All I recalled in my mind were bits and pieces of the past. I really experienced too many things and it was hard to part. Finally, I booked the earliest high-speed rail ticket the next morning. It's a bit of a dog, but in a relationship, one party must give more and be more tolerant. After arriving at her house, when we saw each other, all the grudges and all the quarrels between us seemed to have disappeared. She held my hand and pinched me angrily. I looked at her stupidly and said, "I came all the way here just to see you. Am I romantic?" She said, "Romantic? You are so stupid, go shopping, you can't go to see my mother empty-handed." So we went to the supermarket hand in hand, bought a lot of things, went to her house, and met her mother. That was my first time to her house, and I didn't expect it to be in such an occasion and under such an opportunity. It was after that time that it seemed that the relationship officially entered another stage. Maybe this is God's arrangement. Although marriage is bitter and stressful, it is still beautiful to think about these. If you can always fall in love and not get married, it will be even better. Finally, thank you for the gifts. Thank you very much. I really want to share my joy, so I will send a piece of wedding candy to those big guys who sent large gifts. If it is in the skirt, just chat with me directly, and I will mail it to you, just as a joy. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Leng Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 300. These faint lights are Nangongyun's and his party. At this time, their team has expanded again. Originally, there were only 100 saints, and now several new saints have joined. 100 is more than enough. The newly joined saints come from some relatively small sects, and there are even a few casual cultivators. Their sects have no grudges against Dakin, but when they learned about the grand occasion of the Apocalypse domain, they also wanted to get a share, so they ended their closed-door training and joined in. After all, this is one of the few good opportunities to besiege other forces under the banner of justice. If they can get some opportunities, it will be of great benefit to their future breakthroughs. Anyway, they don't have to take the lead. If there are problems, everyone will shoulder them together. Why not? From ancient times to the present, whenever a war breaks out, the ones who benefit must be those with strong strength. That's why there are behind-the-scenes masters who specialize in inciting wars, with the purpose of obtaining huge profits from it and maintaining their own development. Anyway, no matter what, all those who appeared here were all above the realm of saints, and their means were naturally not comparable to those guards of Tianyang City. If these saints restrained their aura and changed their appearance, even if they swaggered into Tianyang City, these city guards would not be able to distinguish their identities. The gap in strength between the two sides was too big, and they were not at the same level at all. Under the cover of divine consciousness, all the scenery in Tianyang City could not hide from the perception of these saints. Nangongyun's had a calm face and glanced down indifferently, These soldiers guarding the city are well trained and have strong combat effectiveness. Hearing this, the other saints all nodded. The strength of the soldiers guarding Tianyang city here is very strong, not much less than some disciples of small forces, and it is completely worthy of recognition. Nangongyun smiled coldly and continued, when we arrive at the capital of the great Qin dynasty, these people should retire and go home. Everyone smiled at each other, all showing cold and playful eyes. When they successfully raided the Great Qin and captured the leader of the Great Qin, the entire Great Qin would cease to exist. At that time, these generals of the Great Qin would have no choice but to retire and return home. Otherwise, these generals would surely be destroyed. Let's go, let's speed up a little and try to get to Chang'an city before dawn to catch Qin Mu off guard, Nangongyun waved his sleeves and said. Hearing Nangongyun's words, the other saints nodded slightly, and a cold look appeared on their faces. Tianyang city is still a certain distance away from the capital of the Great Qin dynasty. Even at their speed, it will take some time to arrive. At this time, a man in purple robe who had just joined in suddenly asked, I just received information that Qin Mu is no longer in Chang'an city, but is leading the army in person, preparing to fight us outside. If we rush to Chang'an city now, will we be in vain? After this, the other saints frowned. The most important target of their trip was Qin Mu. If they couldn't catch Qin Mu, wouldn't everything be in vain? Nangongyun smiled, your information is incomplete, you only know one thing, but not the other. As far as I know, Qin Mu said that he would lead the army in person, but in fact he did not bring any soldiers with him. Instead, he brought a group of delicate women. Moreover, since he left Chang'an city, he has gone to an unknown place and disappeared from then on. Speaking of this, Nangongyun paused, and the smile on his face became more contemptuous, so I guess that Qin Mu should be worried and afraid of us, so he hid in advance, and before leaving, he also brought a group of women for pleasure. So now is a good time for us to take Chang'an city. Listening to Nangongyun's explanation, everyone suddenly realized that Qin Mu was so cowardly that he was so scared that he didn't even dare to lead the army, and wanted to rely on a group of weak women to fight against them. Isn't this funny? In that case, let's hurry up, so as not to have more dreams at night, an old man with white beard laughed twice. Humph, since Qin Mu is scared, we must quickly solve the problem of Chang'an city, so as not to let him escape and cause the plan to fail. The purple-robed man snorted coldly. Could it be that Qin Mu is deliberately confusing us, and he has already set up a formation in Chang'an city? If so, I'm afraid. Another saint who just joined in frowned and pondered, with a solemn look in his eyes. He was interrupted by Nangongyun just halfway through his words. Formation, Nangongyun sneered. The reason why those saints were killed last time was because they were all deceived by the legendary immortal cave, so they ignored the dangers around them. This time, as long as we are more careful, there will be no problems. But the saint wanted to say something else, and whispered, but if the formation is very advanced, we can't find it. Nangongyun shook his head and smiled, then looked at his Taoist partner Shen Mo Ran, and said, you don't have to worry about this. Ranner has been immersed in the formation for many years. She has her own way to find the foundation of the formation. Shen Mo Ran pursed her lips and smiled, husband, don't worry, I will definitely live up to your expectations. Hearing this, those saints who did not attend the meeting and just joined in finally dispelled their concerns, and their inner confidence increased a lot. If they really found some so-called formation, the worst thing they could do was turn around and leave, and not enter. This is the disadvantage of the formation. No matter how powerful a formation is, it can only stay there and wait for the target to enter, and cannot move on its own. This is also one of the reasons why they are not afraid of the Qin dynasty. What's more, they are carrying the imperial soldiers. It's just a formation. Can it withstand the power of the imperial soldiers? After the voice fell, Nangongyuans took the lead and rushed towards the capital of the Qin dynasty. The other saints were not to be outdone. They turned into a stream of light and followed Nangongyuans, rushing towards the Qin palace. At this moment, the atmosphere in Chang'an City, the capital of the Qin dynasty, became more and more depressing. The air seemed to be stagnant, and everyone breathed carefully. There were few pedestrians on the street, and most of the shops were closed. The streets were empty. Except for the patrolling soldiers, there were almost no other figures, and even a trace of birds and insects had not been heard. The huge Chang'an city seemed to have fallen into a weird state. This dead silence made people feel breathless and panicky. When Qin Mu was still in Chang'an City, the residents of Chang'an City had never felt this way. They ate and drank as they should, without any worries. Because they knew that even if the entire Qin dynasty was occupied by the enemy, Chang'an City would be the last city to fall. Because the emperor of their Qin dynasty was in Chang'an City. But when Qin Mu left Chang'an City, everyone's heart was shrouded in haze, feeling panic and uneasiness. Without Qin Mu, Chang'an City seemed to have no protection, as if it would collapse at any time and never recover. This terrifying atmosphere permeated Chang'an City, shrouding everyone's heart, making people extremely frightened and uneasy, as if it was the prelude to a storm. In the imperial master's mansion, the ministers stood in a row, their faces were extremely gloomy, looking at each other, and the atmosphere seemed particularly dull. Imperial Master Du Yulin stood in the hall, his hands behind his back, his expression solemn, his eyes deep and far-reaching. "Imperial Master, is there still no news from His Majesty?" a military officer asked impatiently.